been doing short stories ever since I was, what, 8, 9? It was about a little sheep that wanted to fly or something. Uh, yeah, I think every kid likes to write little stories, don't they? Especially when they like to draw so they can have the excuse to illustrate them. Well, I finally have my own book. I'm super happy to have it in my hands. It physically exists because ever since I've been writing stuff on the computer and for the most part losing them, I must have lost through hardware failures, system problems, deleting things by mistake, giving up. I don't know, maybe like around 60% of all my work. But finally, one of those digital stories that I wrote, one of those novels that seemed to never have an ending, did come to an ending. It had a conclusion. At least I like to think so. Who knows? I might be tempted into doing part number 2 someday. But I think that the best thing about finally having the physical copy of your book is realizing that an artistic project, a creative endeavor can ultimately be finished. Gosh, I have like so many unfinished paintings, unfinished poems, unfinished songs, so many unfinished projects, but at least now this one exists as a conclusion, something that has been wrapped up, finished, right to the end. And like I said, I might do a second part. I don't know. I'm just like really satisfied with it right now. I noticed that it feels very soft to the touch. I like that it's matte versus gloss. I don't know. There's something about gloss. Like gloss cars, glossy automobiles are very nice versus the matte ones. I do not like matte cars. But as a book, it feels very nice in my hands. And I'm on the cover, as you may have noticed. Of course, I'm not that Simpson yellow, perhaps, but you gotta be more sepia tone to qualify to be on the cover of a book, especially if the binder is going to be so blue. And I really like how it has my brother and we designed the cover. I like how it has 2 colors because basically the story is about a young female protagonist who is struggling to find her place and make ends meet in a world that is dominated between the left and right, the establishment versus the resistance, the ups and downs, the rich versus the poor, and ultimately has to decide whether it's worth it. I mean, yeah, she ends up serving a power structure that she does not believe in. She's constantly forced to betray her ideals because she's got to eat, she's got bills to pay. And the original story was in reality conceived in part with my brother Aaron. We started moving an independent movie back in 2010. And back then, we didn't have this discussion of, the Trump lies, the resistance, and all that. I mean, because nowadays, you just turn on the TV and all these news channels talk about is the divide, the politics. I'm surprised now how the word authoritarian has become so mainstream, because when we started this, we basically wanted to alert about the dangers facing America, and recognizing for one thing that communism doesn't really stand a chance. It's not something that's ever going to happen. I mean, America's never going to become the Soviet Union, but it can turn into a fascist nightmare. And basically, the story is how to survive it. That's why we named it Surviving American Nationalism. Get them while they're hot. It's got 3 more. And besides all the discussions about very important subjects like Black Lives Matter, feminism versus the patriarchy, men's rights, that there's a lot of these core beliefs to the left, and now the right is basically saying, hey, give me a slice of that. I want some affirmative action my way. They're criticizing constantly social justice warriors, while at the same time, a lot of Trump supporters, they want justice themselves. I mean, every side, up or down, brown, purple, or white, and they also want social justice. That's something that we all strive for. But one of the big differences between good and evil here, I know that's simplistic, is that some of us aren't willing to do certain things to achieve that justice. When we were writing the original script to the Illustrator movie, we thought that a lot of these things were impossible, that we weren't ever going to live through something like this. We believed that it was pretty much a fantastical scenario where an ultra-authoritarian, narcissistic, disconnected strongman figure would try to use the helpless as the perfect excuse to not really bring about a substantial change, but pretty much distract people from their real problems. And it's scary how the world scenario right now, how the geopolitics have changed at such a profoundly fast pace that a lot of the fantasy that is in this story has somehow become mainstream. It's now very common, and it's commonplace. It's perfectly normal now to talk about the rise of anti-Semitism. People are now having to read headlines, news headlines that are deeply disturbing and were pretty much inconceivable to the vast population of America before the 2016 election. And is there hope? Can we aspire to change things? Sure, why not? I'm an optimist, and I think that enough people come together, anything is possible. But I think the book will Rachel's own inability sometimes to decipher between what is right and what is convenient, her own struggles between good and bad. I think that it will inspire people to just stand up for what they believe, not be a little tool, a little feather that is constantly torn between all these different winds from north and south. No, just stand up for who you are. If you believe something, and if you firmly are convinced that something is wrong, don't silently accept it. Don't say, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't raise my voice because I might lose my job. Forget about that, because in the end, it's not worth it. In the end, you're going to feel very bad for yourself, and you might become complicit in mass murder. So this is a very troublesome time for people that identify as Democrats, and I don't mean just the Democratic Party, people who believe that in the fundamental human rights, and people who think that as God's creatures, we deserve a bit of respect, and we shouldn't be manipulated, used as simple rhetoric, as tools, as numbers or statistics that some politician can just blabber rants about. I think that in this time and age, everybody's going to be tested, and everybody will have to decide on which side they stand on. And this isn't about whether you're Republican, Democrat, or even rich or poor. This is about, do you believe that making money is more important than respecting a human life? I would say humanist versus materialist. Authoritarian figures with zero respect for our Western values of democracy and human rights, and honest people that might not have the best education out there. They might not have excellent connections to the corporate families or whatever, but are very honestly trying to save what's left of us, trying to salvage what they can so that future generations don't inherit a sunken ship. And well, anyways, like I said, this is the Illustrator. It comes fully illustrated in case anybody likes pictures. As an artist, I thought it was great to finally have an excuse to draw so much. Yes, I fully illustrated the book. Has horrific warnings, because I do think that nuclear weapons are still a threat to humankind. World peace is something that we need to strive for. But unfortunately, there are still people that are trying to suck us back into the abyss of 20th century Cold War hostility. And who knows if we might have soon a nuclear war or something like that. Rachel certainly struggles, but I hope you don't struggle on finding my book. You can find it at Amazon. You can find it soon as an independent movie. And well, anyways, I'm glad to have contributed somehow to the library of humankind by finally finishing one book and illustrating it by myself as my ad, thus the illustrator.